The fact that she had already planned her honeymoon before being engaged is more evidence of how swiftly she was getting ready for this marriage. What if a prominent Christian media figure betrayed one of its most popular stars? Joyce Meyer's shocking expose caused more than simply a stir. Jonilamb's reputation was left precariously balanced as it sent shock waves resonating across Dyer. The network is in a state of complete disarray due to shocking betrayal, startling allegations, and hidden truths. Now that Dyer and Joni know the truth, their lives will be drastically different. Rarely does someone as well-respected and regarded as Joyce Meyer choose to publicly shame another prominent character in Christian media. However, her actions caused a ripple effect throughout the neighborhood. Joyce Meyer and Joni Lamb were closely considered allies for a long time. Their joint appearance was at. They shared a common world of powerful Christian broadcasting, attended the same events, and supported each other's ministry. Because of this, her abrupt and unfiltered critique of Jonilamb was as unexpected as a bolt of lightning. It was hard to turn a blind eye. The customary subtlety was missing from the announcement. Discussions that take place behind the scenes that individuals in the ministry frequently utilize to resolve conflicts. Rather than keeping quiet, Joyce spoke her concerns publicly and without reservation. She expressed her growing concern over Dyer's trajectory under Joni's leadership. In Joyce's depiction, the ministry had become increasingly insular and self-absorbed, abandoning its original goals of serving the community and being transparent with its members. After Joni lost faith in the leadership, she made the decision to leave Dyer on her own. The implication was that Joni had permitted personal desires and an insatiable need for authority to supersede the network's initial objective. There was no petty dispute going on behind the scenes here for the Christian community. This was a world-renowned Bible teacher, someone who could reach millions of people all across the globe and impart his wisdom to them. Many believers that a major problem existed among the world's largest Christian network. It wasn't merely Joyce's words either. It was her willingness to speak it in front of an audience that was noteworthy. That was enough to let folks know how far apart she and the depths to which Joni had sunk were too great to be discreetly addressed any longer. The effects were felt right away. Word got out fast, first through ministry feedback channels and then to the main media. Those who sided with the women got into passionate arguments. It was widely acknowledged that Joyce, mentioning that they had also observed a shift in Dyer's demeanor and priorities during the past few years. Some vehemently defended Joni, saying that Joyce's remarks were inflated or sprang from animosity rather than genuine problems with the network. No matter how people felt about it, one thing was clear. It was too late to save Joni's reputation. Apparently, something changed overnight inside Dyer. Joyce Meyer's public scolding caught her staff and close allies unawares, leaving them unsure of how to react. Individuals who had subtly cast doubt on Joni's suddenly felt affirmed in their leadership roles. In response to what they perceived as an unjust attack, Joni's ardent followers banded together. The leadership schism was becoming more than simply an internal affair. A public emergency has ensued. Next, the most unexpected aspect occurred. Joni Lamb was promptly removed from her position as Dyer's commander. The decision was made so hastily following Joyce's remarks that many questioned whether there was a clear relationship between the two. Neither a slow nor arduous process was involved. It was abrupt, shocking, and ultimately fatal. Many viewers who had followed Joni for a long time found it nearly unbelievable. Being a co-founder wasn't all she did. The network's public face was her. Witnessing her ejected saw what seemed like the removal of a foundational pillar from the ministry. This prompted major concerns among loyal supporters. How could Joyce Meyer's remarks have caused such a sea change? Who or what was truly at work behind the scenes? To what extent did the issues? What more could be unveiled in the coming days? Some saw the removal as proof positive of Joyce's warnings. They sensed that something was amiss and it was finally becoming apparent. The Lamb family weren't the only ones affected by the situation. The executive group of Daystar. It caused a stir in the wider Christian media scene. Churches, ministries, and leaders worldwide were keeping a careful eye on things because they knew this was about more than simply a single dispute. It centered on questions of responsibility, trust, and whether or not. When the most influential ministries departed from their initial mission, they could face consequences. The bombshell that was Joyce Meyer was ultimately more than simply a public scolding. A fireball broke out, bringing Dyer's problems to light and triggering a moment of reckoning for online system. One thing is certain, but the complete story of Jonilamb's dismissal may not yet be revealed. Her image in the Christian media world will never be the same. Dyer Television Network, one of the biggest Christian television networks, lost its leader with Marcus Lamb's passing. Was forced to navigate a challenging shift, impacting broadcasting organizations globally. Marcus was the one who had made Dyer what she was today. From a little family-run ministry to a media behemoth, all thanks to his foresight, enthusiasm, and impact. Given the unexpectedness of his death, it was widely believed that the throne would be passed down to his son, Jonathan Lamb. Many looked to him as the natural successor to Marcus because of his extensive involvement in the network's operations. However, not everything went according to plan. Joni Lamb, who was Marcus's widow, took the lead instead. Additionally, her authority grew over time. Dyer flourished. Hi there, everyone. To the Dyer loved ones, I wanted to share some personal thoughts and feelings with you today. Jonathan Lamb, my son, lost his job not long ago because of Dyer's choice. We did not rush toward that decision. This action was taken after a comprehensive performance improvement plan had been in place for Jonathan for 15 months, during which time he had refused to implement any of the recommendations made. He flat out rejected my offer to mediate a formal dispute resolution process based on biblical principles and professional standards. I would prefer not to. Now that we know Jonathan was intent on creating a smear campaign, he clearly wasn't trying to better his performance at Dyer. After his father and my husband, Marcus Lamb, passed away, Jonathan was devastated to learn that he would not succeed him as president of Dyer. Regardless of, it was made very obvious to the family and the board by Marcus that I would be his successor as president. Jonathan's dissatisfaction with not getting his way was intensified when I wed Dr. Doug Weiss. A blessing to my family and Dyer, and to me personally. I can tell you that this circumstance breaks my heart and saddens me profoundly because I am a mother and a grandmother. Adore my loved ones. All my children are loved by me. Having grandkids is the most blessing in my life. Working with you for all these years has been an incredible experience. Plus, I was hoping we could have worked things out behind closed doors. However, at this point, Jonathan has left me with no alternative but to speak out. The gospel of Jesus Christ has been our life's work, and everyone knows it. My heart breaks at the thought of my son Jonathan and his wife attacking it. It was easy to comprehend the change at first. There was Joni, who had been Marcus's rock, and there is serving as the group's leader. Some regarded it as an essential step toward stability, while others saw it as a fresh wound from the loss of her husband. However, Joni's leadership style started to shift as time went on. What had begun as a collaborative leadership style that included family members, and reliable co-workers started to sense a growing authoritarianism. Instead of consulting her family, friends, and co-workers, Joni began making decisions independently. On the years, her influence on Dyer's trajectory grew, and tensions began to boil over as a result. Hidden within the network started to expand. It took some time for it to become clear. Dyer appeared to be the same family-oriented network it always been to those on the outside. Joni kept making appearances on TV, both as a host and a participant in the network's shows. However, individuals with a closer relationship to the company began to detect a change in the ethos. Dyer shifted from a collaborative ministry where family members made decisions collectively to one in which individuals held more influence. With other family members taking a back seat, Joni rose to prominence and became the organization's de facto leader. Individuals were relegated to the sidelines. Despite his close relationship with his father and his potential for advancement inside the firm, Jonathan was progressively pushed to the sidelines. You could feel his irritation building up. It wasn't merely that Jonathan felt unworthy of the role he was being offered. That his worries were being disregarded was the main point. Also, he started to feel like his opinions weren't being heard after a while. Discord in the family was a direct result of Joan's leadership style. Jonathan was left stranded in the house with Jonathan and his son after Joni began to withdraw herself socially and start making important decisions alone, without even seeking anyone for input. The shift in power dynamics wasn't the only area affected. Every aspect of the network's culture was affected by it. The mood within Dyer's office turned serious. Employees who had worked alongside Marcus and Joni for a long time started to sense a change in authority. People thought Joni was going downhill, lost touch with its founding purpose, which was to proclaim the gospel through service to others. Some thought she was more concerned with preserving her personal status quo than with carrying out the assignment effectively. After initially soliciting feedback from a wide range of stakeholders, Joni's objective started to trump everyone else's. It wasn't merely about Dyer's trajectory. The values that the network was meant to symbolize were at the heart of the matter. The show's focus changed as the network's management changed. An inclusive platform that used to disseminate a variety of Christian. Joni's vision became more and more central to the messaging over time. Previously prominent ministries and voices on Dyer's programming were marginalized. A number of employees started to worry that the network was becoming less of a faith-based ministry and more of a media conglomerate. Serving people has always been Dyer's objective, but now it appears controlling the network's operations and message is more important. The sense of camaraderie that had always been a hallmark of Dyer was beginning to fade from memory. Increasing tensions were also caused by this internal transition. The Lamb lineage as a whole. There was more going on than Joni's leadership style that contributed to her growing influence over the network. The problem was internal and had an impact on relationships inside the family. Despite his importance to Dyer's operations in the past, Jonathan started to feel increasingly left out. His preparation for a more prominent role in the network following Marcus's passing was extensive, but it became more apparent with the passing of time that Joni had no plans to stand down. Tensions rose between mother and son, and the family dynamic reflected the difficulties experienced by the system as a whole. The remaining Lamb family members were caught in the crossfire as Joni's authoritarianism escalated. There was a lot of pushback when some members tried to voice their disapproval of the network's course of action. The message was loud and clear for those who thought Joni was wrong. You would be met with repercussions if you dared to challenge the leadership. When others at Dyer, including employees, family members, and trusted co-workers, spoke out against the changes, they were either ignored or removed from their positions. Dyer had lost its ethos of open communication and teamwork. It was now among anxiety, dominance, and coercion. Those outside of Dyer noted the increasing influence within the group. Dyer, a family ministry that shared the gospel with millions, has always stood as an emblem of Christian solidarity. However, when considering, as the leaders' approach changed, so did the way the public saw them. Doubters started to voice their opinions on whether Dyer was still accomplishing its initial goal. Had it shifted from a focus on ministry to one on power? The growing animosity within the Lamb family only served to heighten the urgency of this matter. A rift in the family's cohesion emerged when Jonathan and others spoke up about their worries. Concerns about how this change might affect Dyer employees and ministry partners were among the most pressing. An organization that had its roots in family values and had strong relationships with its workers and business associates began to take on a more corporate air. Those who had worked for the network for many years suddenly found themselves entangled in an increasingly heated power battle. The future of many at Dyer was cloudy. They didn't know if they would maintain their position within a network that appeared to be drifting away from its initial mission. When Jonathan Lamb started to publicly criticize the changes at Dyer, the tension reached a pinnacle. He aired his grievances about being ignored and claimed that his mother was manipulating Dyer into a platform-driven the exertion of authority and command. The rift within the Lamb family was further widened by this public censure. It was obvious that Dyer was transformed from its previous state as a ministry driven by a cohesive family. This conflict's public character placed Dyer in a precarious position. A watershed moment in the evolution of the network occurred when Joni began to exert more influence over Dyer's activities and message. A power battle escalated from a cooperative family project into something that would drive a wedge between Dyer and the Lambs. Joni Lamb's authority rose to new heights, although matters solely of leadership style. Both the present and the future of the network's foundational principles were at stake. Will Dyer always put its mission to help others first? On the other hand, would its desire and power cause it to become simply another media empire? The fate of Dyer, the Lambs, and their cherished legacy depended on the response to that question. The unanticipated storm of public discord, familial strife, and accusations inside the Lamb family and the Dyer television network hit like a ton of bricks. For what appeared to be severely divided after once being viewed as a cohesive family spreading faith and hope. This conflict stemmed from the leadership change that took place after the unexpected death of Marcus Lamb. With Marcus's passing, many thought his son Jonathan would take up more responsibilities at Dyer, with a background in ministry. However, Dyer's trajectory began to change as his mother Joni Lamb assumed a more authoritative role. At first, everyone could see why Joni had to take the lead. Along with her co-founder, she had spent years assisting Marcus. But Joni's aversion to sharing power became more apparent as time passed. Her leadership style became more authoritarian, and she started making choices on her own. Even though he had always had a hand in major choices, Jonathan now found himself passed over. His mother's rejection left him feeling uninvolved, despite his expectations of playing a larger role in Dyer's destiny. Anger and public outcry ensued as a result of this. Jonathan and Susie began to voice their disapproval of Johnny's leadership style and the direction Dyer was taking. They saw a shift away from the ministry's traditional emphasis on community service and toward a focus on individual gain and power. To top it all off, Jonathan and Susie went public with their accusations that the leadership was trying to cover up major issues within the family. Went public with their concerns on what they saw as an absence of openness and the neglect of key matters. It was a watershed moment. The initial dispute over leadership soon escalated into a public scandal that would have far-reaching consequences for Dyer's career. A friend of Joni's. The reply was unwavering. In her defense of her leadership choices, she rejected the charges leveled by Jonathan and Susie. Even though she downplayed their worries as insignificant grudges, the harm had already been done. Regardless of their veracity, the accusations tarnished the Lamb's reputation, repute of the family, and the trustworthiness of Dyer. A once solid web of faith and family appeared to have become increasingly fractured. Some of the backers started to wonder what was actually happening in the shadows. Dyer, a symbol of solidarity and optimism for so long, now seems disjointed and unsure. The Lamb family wasn't the only ones impacted by this family feud. It reverberated across Dyer's wider network of associates, customers, and spectators. Employees who had known the Lambs well for a long time were now confused about their whereabouts. Remained standing. Many were perplexed by the abrupt change in leadership dynamics and took a side with either Joni or Jonathan. Those who had backed Dyer for a long time began to wonder if the once reliable network was now just a staging ground for political maneuvering instead of leadership position. The marriage of Joni to Doug Weiss only served to heighten the tensions. Some were concerned that Doug's ascent to power inside Dyer following Marcus's murder was an attempt to further entrench Joni's grip over the network. Just as his star began to rise, the feeling of split, especially among individuals who were already casting doubt on Joni's leadership approach. Public opinion became increasingly divided as the family dispute intensified. The network seemed to be heading in the wrong direction when Jonathan publicly criticized his mother and Dyer's leadership. At one time thought of being the entire Dyer community felt the repercussions of the newfound animosity within the once united force of Christian media. It appeared like a struggle for dominance and control had taken over what was once a ministry devoted to sharing faith and helping people. The public dispute's aftermath prompted serious inquiries into the destiny of Dyer. Is it possible for the network to get past the accusations and internal turmoil? Could the Lambs get back together? Or was this schism here to stay? There was a lot of confusion among viewers, backers, and ministry associates. What would happen to Dyer if it got back to its original goal and stopped getting caught up in family turmoil and power battles? Restoring the network's image would be a lengthy process, and its future appeared cloudy at best. Allegations, family strife, and public discord. How problems within even the most esteemed ministries might arise. It demonstrated that the precise goal that had brought Dyer prosperity could be overshadowed by power, ambition, and internal strife. Whether Dyer could regain its position would depend on the outcome of this conflict. As an esteemed ministry, or if scandal and discord would tarnish the Lamb family's reputation for generations to come. There was more at stake than only the fate of a Christian TV network in the struggle for Dyer's future. A struggle for its very essence ensued, where it all began as a family. The core mission of the faith-based, united, and community-oriented ministry was now in doubt, and it was at a crossroads. The significant rift between Joni Lamb and her son put the network in a hazardous position as the Lamb family became separated due to claims and power battles. Every aspect of Dyer's future was being affected by Jonathan, the public backlash, and the exclusion of important family members from leadership decisions. Providing a global platform for ministries and spreading the gospel had always been the network's original objective. Serving others, providing hope, and sharing the Christian religion were the three pillars around which Dyer was built. Around the years, it attracted millions of viewers all around the world and became one of the leading Christian media platforms. The emphasis of the network shifted, however, when the leadership changed. Some started to wonder if Dyer had abandoned its original mission. After Marcus's death, Joni assumed a more prominent role, and the changes became more noticeable, though they were minor at first. After years of being controlled by a family, the ministry now felt more like a corporation. Many of the employees who had been with Dyer from the beginning began to feel neglected when family members' opinions were no longer considered when making decisions. Many felt that Dyer had abandoned the cooperative, family-centered attitude that Joni was increasingly exhibiting by taking charge of the network's course. Transparency and unity had once defined the network, but now it was evolving into something very new. It seems like the ministry was pushed on the back burner in favor of power and control. This change hit close to home for Jonathan. His entire life had been devoted to helping his parents construct Daystar. Many assumed that Jonathan would logically succeed Marcus as network CEO after his death. To continue his father's work, he possessed the necessary knowledge, admiration, and enthusiasm. However, Johnny's dominance over Dyer prevented him from participating in the decision-making process. One of the main causes of conflict in the family was the decision to not include Jonathan in important leadership positions. It seemed like a betrayal to abruptly remove Jonathan from his long-standing role in the network's operations. For Jonathan, it was quite evident that he was growing more and more irritated by the path Dyer was on, as his mother's leadership had become more autocratic. The already present schism in the family was exacerbated by his outspoken criticism of his mother's leadership. The struggle over Dyer's destiny extended beyond the question of who would captain the ship. It all came down to the values that the network would uphold. Many of Dyer's followers believed Jonathan when he said that there had been a change in leadership and that there was an increased emphasis on control and power. Over the years, they had witnessed Dyer's growth, and many had begun to rely on it as a symbol of norms held by Christians. They started to wonder if Dyer had gotten off track now that the Lamb family was fractured and the future of the network was unclear. Had the network strayed from its original mission of sharing the gospel, or had it become a vehicle for individual gain? The effects of the family quarrel were significant. Those who had remained faithful to Dyer for a long time began to wonder if they could keep supporting a ministry that was obviously rocked. Not only did some contributors cut ties with the network, but churches that had previously cooperated with it started to separate from one another.